Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to CrossPoint in the Middle this evening. And tonight we have Tara Prater, who is a pretty consistent small group leader for CrossPoint, and we have Logan Pickerel, who is our small group director at CrossPoint. And we just kind of want to dive deeper into this Sunday's message where we talked about connecting with other believers, and we see this with Paul in Acts and how he has this relationship with Timothy. So I guess the first question that I really just kind of want to ask you guys is, we talked about this idea of a personal and like a communal faith. And a lot of people believe that our faith is personal. And I just kind of wonder what your thoughts are on why do people think that our faith is personal, and why do we struggle with this idea of having like a communal faith?
I think for a lot of people, a lot of times it's the fear of judgment. You know, if we keep it personal, we don't have to share things that may be happening to us. And when you are in a communal, area with other believers and things like that, sometimes things can get brought up, or you can go a little bit deeper. And maybe sometimes it goes deeper than you really had planned on it. So I think it's probably for a lot of people the fear of judgment, on themselves.
Yeah, sure, I would agree with that. I think it's hard to be vulnerable at times. You know what I mean? So it's easier just to kind of keep that stuff to yourself. You know, a communal faith or a communal relationship like that requires you to really be open, and it's kind of hard to do sometimes. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like in my own personal life, I have seen this happen a lot. I look back to my past and when I didn't really have a relationship with Jesus, and I realized that I didn't have support. I didn't have people who I really trusted enough, I guess. So it was a lot easier for me to just kind of like stay personal instead of get out of my comfort zone and make any part of my life communal, honestly. And I think it goes a lot with what Logan was saying, like how hard it is to be vulnerable with anyone in any aspect of life, whether it's rejoicing your victories or just being honest with your struggles, honestly. So what's kind of like one moment in your life, I guess, that you've seen a community of believers really help you like get through it, or like rejoice with you in a victory, I guess?
I know for Kelly and I, when we started the marriage small group, we kind of started it in a very small group in our home, and we still kept a lot of, again, fear of judgment, fear of trust. Can we trust these people with our testimony? But honestly, with our largest group is where we found the freedom to be able to openly tell our testimony fully for the first time. And it was so liberating, so freeing. I really felt like everything that I had held against myself, I was able to release. And so it really does show you that if you are in community, and you do confess your sins or confess, to other believers, and they hold you and they support you, that your life is just really transformed. It was so uplifting for both of us and freeing. So,
For us, I think about a year ago, we started experiencing some behavioral issues with our oldest son, and like when things are going well in life, like one little bump kind of throws everything out of whack. And so, like for us, it was a speed bump that took us for a wild ride. And for us, we kind of leaned into our small group, which is a pretty good circle of friends for us that all have kids about the same age. And it was amazing to see how those folks could rally around us and support us, as we were kind of going through what that looked like, and how to get help, how to offer help, and just to extend prayer and any kind of support that they could offer. So that was a great example for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like when you have that community, it's a lot harder to like stay in your own mind. And when you stay in your own mind and you're constantly fighting your own thoughts, that's when it gets really hard. And so having that strong community of other believers is honestly a huge encouragement and just helps so much in all aspects of life. And If you remember, we talked about Paul and this transformation and how he was hanging out with negative people, so he was acting like negative people. And we talked about the research that shows you're the average of your 5 closest friends or the 5 closest people in your life. And so how would you say that you like navigate removing yourself from the negative people and implementing yourself into that positive community, but at the same time not forgetting about the negative people completely because they need Jesus just like we all do?
For me, I thought that was a great example, by the way. When you went through that, then I started thinking, okay, who are the 5 people that I'm the closest with, and how do I resemble them, right? How do I average out to be that? But anyways, for the point there, it's a really good question. For me, I just try to think and pray about, okay, let me see people as Jesus sees people. And so when I see negativity, when I see gossip, or when I hear gossip, when I see that, judgy kind of behaviors and stuff like that, for me, I'm quick to change the subject, but I'm also quick to offer, God's love in the situation. What can we do differently? How can we look at this, a little bit better? But for me, I just try to look at people, even no matter what's going on, and just try to be like, how would God view this situation? How can I impact, what they're doing? So.
Kelly, by the way, he counted his 5 people as granddaughters. So I'm like, yeah, that does, you kind of resemble.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Because he's around them a lot. So those were 2 of his 5. I thought that was funny. But for us, in our rebuilding of our marriage, we really did have to do that. We had to really look at those 5 people or whoever and really start to focus on, making our circle smaller so that we didn't have the negative, whether it's negative talk, negative actions, things like that. So he and I both were very purposeful with that. And I know he will say that was huge for him. And same thing with Logan. Like if he, would be at work and he would hear, bad talk or negative talk, he would immediately try to he'd walk away or he'd try to, change the subject or, something like that, try to make an influence in that way. I'm lucky. I've got a lot of good, positive people in my circle. But those that were a negative influence, you still love them. You still pray for them. I kind of like dab my toe, around them and try to be an influence. But at the same time, that you have to protect yourself and your relationship and, whatever that might be.
Right. And I feel like it's a lot easier to let the negativity impact you than the positivity. It's a lot easier to focus on the negative than rejoice in the small victories of life. And so it's a very hard thing to navigate through at all times, really. And so we also talked about in 2 Timothy when Paul is kind of writing back to Timothy to check up on him and everything, he gives him very clear instructions, these directions that what you have learned from me, go and commit it to other faithful men. Go and share what I have taught you with others. And I think that we struggle with this. I struggle with it. And so how would you say you can implement this into your own personal life? And do you have an experience where someone is constantly pouring into you or you're constantly pouring into someone else?
I know for me, I've got kind of a 2 different areas. Like I deal with anxiety, and so I tend to gravitate towards people that deal with anxiety and try to lift them up, strengthen them, whether it's sending them Bible verses or whatever. I think when you see those commonalities in other people, just as you challenged us on Sunday to actively seek out those people and be intentional, whether it's just for prayer or if you do guide and direct them and support them through their journey. And then for us in the broader spectrum, we definitely felt a calling once we were, continuing to rebuild our marriage to start the marriage small group and to try to help other marriages not get to the point that we had. So, learning from our experiences and, sharing what our counselors have given us and biblically what we've learned and things like that. So I just try to keep my eyes open wherever I am to who may be in need. And I absolutely every night pray and in the morning that God will put me where I need to be, wherever that might be.
Yeah.
That's such a great example. So 2 things for us. I actually do have a mentor that sort of a business kind of like outside of church leadership type mentor and also spiritual leadership. And it's sort of a weekly check-in. Every once in a while it gets a little bit longer than that just due to the busyness of life. Tremendous influence on my life as a result of that. And because of that, about a year ago, we started a little mini book club, and we read the book Wild at Heart, and it was just a bunch of guys that kind of got together, which is a great book.
Yeah.
But if anybody is looking to get a good read, but Wild at Heart, we kind of what we would do is we would take like 4 chapters at a time, and we would read through the 4 chapters, and then we'd get together and go do an event. Like we went axe throwing, it was like just really cool, like, fun stuff to kind of do together. And either before or after or during, we'd have a sit down and be like, hey, what'd you take away from those 4 chapters? Like what hit you the hardest? What is most resonating in your life at the current moment? Those types of things. So when you have those types of bonds and those friendships and those types of relationships, it's just amazing how when people invest in you, you can then invest in them. So that was one good example. The other is I don't have a marriage group or tons of marriage experience, but anytime I get the chance, if I have younger friends or friends that are just newly getting married, the first when my wife and I go and attend the wedding or whatever, our gift is always the book Love and Respect, and we follow up with a talk with them about like how that's going. So that book has just done a number of things for our relationship and our marriage. And so anytime I get a chance to talk about that book and spread that with others, I think it helps them. So
Yeah, I love that. I love what Tara said, how you pray that God would put you in the right place. I think that shows the intentionality of it. And I think that we all have to take that step. That's one of the first steps to becoming connected with other believers, the intentionality of our hearts and getting out of our comfort zone, whether it's just kind of getting up and texting someone, hey, good morning, praying about you, and trying to build a relationship from that, or whether it's going axe throwing with a bunch of guys. I slowly became to realize that with my discipleship at Crew, at Moorhead, that the most impactful nights seemed to be when it wasn't about meeting up for like spiritual development, but when it was just getting together and like being friends. And so I think it's so easy to think that mentorship, discipleship is just, all right, I'm going to text them, see how they're doing, whatever, talk about the Bible. But like, it's so much more than that. It's living life together.
Absolutely.
And so I guess I kind of am curious on if you guys have that one person. I know Logan kind of mentioned it a little bit for you with your mentorship, but that one person who not only do you just meet up, but you kind of live this life together where you're constantly trying to develop spiritually together and also just kind of have fun, honestly, and make memories together.
I thought about that, and like, I'm very much a person that pours into other people, and I have, obviously my mom is a huge supporter and knows exactly when I need prayer or whatever, so she always is pouring into me. And I have a best friend that we get together and stuff like that, but I can't really say that I honestly have a mentor. And I've never, until now, like really looked at needing one. So no, I can't say, other than just like mom and my best friend, we do life together. I don't have a mentor.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably use one. I'm not saying I'm
Right,
above
yeah.
it.
And I'm sure eventually that'll come along. And
So if anybody out there,
the 40-day spiritual deepening challenge, we'll pair you up with someone. Yeah, of course.
So for me, it kind of all started back when we were building this environment here at this location. I was paired up with Jeff Roach and Brian Minke, and we just did everything together here for hours on end. And I was just, those guys are, they're further in their careers, they're further in their, relationship in following Christ, and just everything about them, their leadership abilities, how they speak to people, how they interact with people, and then how they get things done really was inspirational to me. So I was kind of fortunate that they took me under their wing and let me kind of go along with them. And now now those relationships are, probably two of my favorite relationships that I have, and learned lots from them both, and look forward to continuing that with them. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously,
and the funny thing is, had it not been for serving together,
Yeah.
right, that may have never really come to life.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what's really cool about when you get involved and serve with people, how God uses that to form relationships and form connections that you just don't even know how that's going to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you look back through the rerouting series, we go through worship, serving, and now connecting. And if you think about it, it all kind of falls into place.
Yeah.
If you worship beyond Sunday, then eventually it's going to lead to you serving beyond Sunday. And that serving is going to lead to connecting to other believers. And it's kind of crazy just looking back how all those fall into place. And so I guess my last question, unless your response has sparked another idea, which it's possible, is if you were sitting in front of someone right now, someone who maybe it's their first time at church, or they're kind of confused. They don't really know why they need this community. They don't know why their faith can't just stay personal. What is kind of like one thing you would tell them that, like, this is why it can change your life? This is why you should get connected in a community of believers. And I know we've talked about this a little bit already, and then what is like one experience that just stands out that you would tell them about to kind of like get them on board with this community idea?
I think as far as like if somebody was standing in front of me and they are asking, why do I not? And I just always go back to, we are never meant to do life alone. And whether that's, spiritually or emotionally or anything, that is such a lonely, dark place and an easy place for the devil to get to you. And the more people that you can have rallying around you, I've got friends that deal with depression or anxiety, and definitely in those times, that's the first thing we want to do is pull in and not talk to anybody. But I know in my times, just for example, and like last Thursday, I was so stubborn. I was having anxiety. Usually I'll text a friend and be like, I do have a mentor. I just thought of her. She lives in North Carolina. I'll give her a shout out.
Hey, perfect. It may not have came off the top of the head, but there it is.
No, she does. She pours into me, and she's one big reason that Kelly and I we started praying together and stuff like that. So, yes, I do have a mentor. But I, like in my times of anxiety, I usually will text somebody and be like, I can't shake this. I don't know what's going on. Just pray for me. And I swear, as soon as I send that message, it's gone. I know they're praying, and I literally have no anxiety. Well, last Thursday, Tara was stubborn. Tara wasn't going to do it. About 11 o'clock, I was still, anxious, almost in tears, and literally opened my phone to text my mom just to ask her to pray. And I thought, no, this is stupid. I can do this myself. I don't need anybody. I'm praying. God's got this. I know he does. And I closed my phone, and my mom texted me. Now, mind you, I never sent a text. She said, I can't open your text. And I said, I didn't send you one, but apparently the man upstairs did, because she literally had like the little circle that she couldn't open it, and it was not from me. So I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So community is huge. Whether you know it or not, God knows it. And the support, the love, the everything you get from community is just like no other.
Yeah, so if somebody was in front of me and they're kind of weighing whether or not it's worth jumping in, or, I mean, first of all, I'm not going to obviously come out and say this up front, but I believe the Bible tells us that two are better than one. You know, essentially, when one falls, the other is there to support them, and so I think that's the essence of what Christian faith is all about, is doing it together, just like Tara said. Personally, I've seen lots of cases and instances in our small group and in the circle of friends where, I'm not going to share issues, but there's been countless number of events where people have come to group and said, I'm really, really struggling with this, or this is going in my life. And it's so funny. I mean, it's not funny, hilarious funny, but it's just great to see how we're going down the group guide, we're asking questions, and then the group goes this way, but everybody goes that way, you know? So, and then it's neat because, you know, you now have something that people can rally behind, and then for the whole, you know, remaining week and probably the next 2 weeks, people are texting, hey, how you doing? You know, I'm praying for you today. How's it going? Can you give an update? You know, whatever. And so we circle back to that. So I don't know. I think there's lots of examples. I mean, I don't want to really go into them, you know, to share people's, you know, issues. But I think the moral of it is, it takes courage to be vulnerable and share those things. But the reward is peace. I mean, once you do that, and once you have that group of friends and you're willing to go there, man, it's just an overwhelming peace comes on you that, I mean, it doesn't matter what's going on, right? It gives you peace. So.
Yeah, I love that. And it's always, for me, it's always nice having that group of people who, no matter what is happening, I know they're there. No matter what is going on in my life, I can shoot them a text, and I know that in the next 5 minutes, I'll hear back from one of them. And one of them may not see it until the next morning, but I know that when they see it, they're going to make sure that they are there and ready to help. And I love what you were talking about, how we just weren't called to be alone. We were never called to live life alone. We read in Psalm 23 in the Present series that Chad did a few months ago, that it says that even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And we don't have to fear that darkness because we are not alone. We have the Lord, and it's so much better when you have the Lord and a group of believers to rally behind you. So, guys, thank you so much for doing this. But I would love to pray for us.
Yes.
Father, thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight and just learn more about you. I pray that as we go throughout the rest of this week, you give us the courage and the boldness to just step out on a leap of faith and become more vulnerable. Allow us to recognize the importance of community, because we know that where community is, you are there also. And that if we don't have community, we can live in a very, very dark place. So give us this desire and this eagerness to seek after you and to seek after believers of you, God. Father, we love you so much and we praise you. And it's in your holiest name that I pray. Amen.